Welcome back to the MOOC course titled Qualitative Research Methods. My name is Aradhana Malik and I teach at the Indian Institute of Technology in Kharagpur, West Bengal, India, and I'm helping you with this course. We were talking about, in the previous classes, we have discussed what qualitative research is, what qualitative researchers do, and how qualitative research is different from quantitative research methods. Very ideological, on a very philosophical level, how are the two different? So today in this class, what we are going to talk about is the history of qualitative research methods. How did qualitative research methods acquire the shape they are in today? How did they come to be what they are today? And this is again from the book by Denson and Lincoln that I told you about right in the beginning. It is in the introductory chapter, and the chapter deals with how qualitative research methods came to acquire this shape that they are in today. So Denson and Lincoln divide up the entire period of the study of qualitative research or the use of qualitative research methods into 5 different moments, and those moments are what we are going to discuss today. Okay, history of qualitative research. Denson and Lincoln say that the first moment or the traditional period was from the early 1900s to World War II. See, what happened was, initially when people talked about qualitative research, they didn't even call it research. People would document their experiences, people would write down what they experienced, and I have a background in child development, and one of the first accounts of child development or the study of child development that we study was the baby biographies or the diaries that parents kept as far as the growth and development of their children was concerned. So, and I have seen some of these baby biographies during my stay in the United States during my PhD program, and I've referred to some of them for my PhD thesis also. And it's an amazing document. People would write what their children did at different points in time, and so date my child said this word, so and so date my child stood up, so and so day my child was able to walk, so and so date my child was able to run, or describing the activities they did, so saying that the child started with blah 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 and then went on to mama mama and I responded like this, and this is the way the child responded. So detailed descriptions of what children did, as far as their activities were concerned, and these very detailed, very meticulously kept diaries were known as baby biographies. And these then came to be accepted as a tool for future research or for further research into the way children developed and what could be considered as the normal pace of development of children, and where would one say that, okay, my child needs help at this stage because the rest of the children are growing and the rest of the children are progressing, they're able to start vocalizing, they're able to start speaking their words, and my child is not able to speak the words at this particular age, or my child is not able to run at this particular age. So what should I be worried? Should I take the child for some help? That kind of thing. So that was, they served as the background material. Similar things happened with daily life. People who wanted to study daily life, people who wanted to study phenomena in daily life, and this was the traditional period, and this lasted from the early 1900s to World War II. Now, the focus here was researchers who were concerned with offering valid, reliable and objective interpretations in their writings, and the other who was studied was alien, foreign and strange. So one would not study one's own behavior, one would not study things from the perspective of an insider, one would actually distance oneself from the phenomenon that was being studied and study things from the perspective of the outsider. And then the object of study was labeled as the other. So it was something totally disconnected with the researcher. It was something alien, someone alien, a phenomenon that was alien, a phenomenon that was strange, a phenomenon that the researcher could not relate to, and so one pulled oneself out. And the field worker during this period was lionized. That means made into larger than life figure who went into and then returned from the field with stories about strange people. So we are talking about a researcher who was treated like somebody very brave, somebody doing something very, very important, somebody who had the courage to go into a situation, study the situation from the perspective of an outsider, from the perspective of an outsider, from the distancing oneself from the phenomenon that one was studying, and then describe it to people who either did not have the time or the methods or the courage. When we say lionized, we are also talking about courage. So this was discussed in the form of, or from the perspective of somebody who was courageous enough to take that risk, to go into an alien situation, study it, and bring back this very vital, very new information about a phenomenon that people did not know about. And this period, that is why, because very few people were either able to or willing to do it, this people who did it were treated as people who were very courageous, who were willing to take risks, and that is why this was treated, or this was labeled as the period of the lone ethnographer. It was also called the period of the lone ethnographer, the single ethnographer, the an ethnographer who went in, who studied a phenomenon alone, who studied a phenomenon without the support of a team of people who were there to help him or her. The person went in, got the data, and then came and analyzed it with a team of people. But while collecting the data, the person was on his or her own and had to have the courage to be able to take the risk of going into an alien situation and studying it. After this came the modernist phase. According to Denson and Lincoln, there was a modernist phase, and this lasted from the period just after World War II well into the 1970s, and the focus was the formalization of qualitative methods. So people started realizing the value of the information that was brought back from the field. People started realizing how much of information they got, how it could form the basis of further study, how it could inform them about phenomena that they were new to. And taking all of this and considering realizing the significance of this method of study, they said, okay, now we are all doing it in different ways. Somebody is writing diaries, somebody is going and observing things, somebody is bringing back pictures, somebody is bringing back audio recordings. And we must also remember that this was the time when technology was developing very, very fast. So the size of the cameras kept coming down, cameras became more and more portable, the size of audio recorders, or the ability to record audio files or audio material, became easier and easier as time went by. And so all of this was also happening. So more and more people had the courage to go into the field and bring back this data. And once people who had brought back all this information had established themselves as having contributed significantly to the body of knowledge, other people also became interested, other people also got the courage to do similar studies in a variety of situations. So what happened was that in order to organize all of these very diverse, very rich descriptive studies, the researchers, the scholars in the field, or the scholars who were using qualitative research methods, said, well, maybe we need to now decide and formalize the methods we use to collect all this information from the field, and that is what the focus was on. Okay. After this came the period of blurred genres. Now this period lasted from the 1970s to 1986. And the central task in this period of the central task of theory was to make sense out of a local situation in light of what one already knew. So the focus was no longer getting brand new information. The focus was on linking the new information to what one already knew in order to prove the significance of this new body of knowledge. Why do we need to know something new? Why do we need to bring back this information? How is it relevant in the light of what we know earlier and in the light of what we are going to know in future? So the connections started being made in this period. So all of this, everybody agreed that this was rich information, but then why is it even important at this stage? How do we understand it? We understand it in light of something that we already know. So the purpose of research and theorizing was to connect the new information one discovered to the old information and knowledge one already had, without which the new information that one discovered would likely be meaningless. The purpose in this phase was to situate the new in the old. So why is this information important? What are we going to do with it? Why should we spend time understanding this information? Yes, somebody is doing something in some part of the world, but why should we be so concerned? Why should we even study it? Are they going to continue doing it in future? Have they done it in the past? How does it relate to their life in the past? How does it inform us as researchers about what we already know about research into similar phenomena elsewhere in the world? So the connections were being made, and the question that came to be asked again and again was, what is qualitative research after all, and how do we connect it to what we already know about research? So people were again confused. People again became confused. People said, why qualitative research? Why is it important? Why do we need to describe things? Why can't we just quantify them and be done with it? Why can't we just categorize them and be done with it? Why describe things that we are quantifying already? Because what happened was that things that did not fit into these quantifiable categories were the ones that started being described in greater detail, and in order for these descriptions to make sense, one had to connect them with what one already knew in the context of quantified, categorized information and knowledge. The period after this was labeled the crisis of representation. And how does one interpret, how does one present this? And I know there's a lot of text on the slide, but I'm going to read it from here, and please try and follow this. In writing, the field worker makes a claim to moral and scientific authority. These claims allow to function as sources of validation for an empirical science. They show, that is, that the real world, that the world of real lived experience can still be captured, if only in the writer's memoirs, fictional experimentations or dramatic readings. As a series of writings, the field worker's texts flow from the field experience through intermediate works to later work, and finally to the research text, that is the public presentation of the ethnographic and narrative experience. Thus, do fieldwork and writing blur into one another. There is, in the final analysis, no difference between writing and fieldwork. So writing is an interpretation of fieldwork. We do fieldwork, but then we do not have the ability, no, it is beyond the human capacity to capture the information about each and every aspect of a phenomenon one is studying. Fieldwork guides writing. Writing is an interpretation of fieldwork, and fieldwork guides writing, and writing an understanding of the fieldwork that has been conducted. So we conduct fieldwork and we represent it in the form of our written work. We tell people, this is what I understood from the field. So writing is a method of representation. So writing is an interpretation of fieldwork, fieldwork guides writing, and writing an understanding of the fieldwork that has been conducted. then guides further fieldwork that can continue making sense in line of what has already made sense in light of past knowledge. This seems very, very difficult. So, please pause your screens and read it for a second. So, whatever we do in the field, we bring back. And we bring back and then we write it up so that people can understand. We use language. Language is a great method of expression. It's a great tool of expression, but it also limits us. We can only write about, or we can only use the vocabulary that we have to explain phenomena that we are encountering afresh. You see the problem here? We may encounter a phenomenon that we have no vocabulary for. I may never have seen snow in my life. And I go into a place where there is lots of snow. Maybe I go and visit Alaska. Now, I go there and the local Eskimos, some, someplace north of, in the northern part of Alaska, the Eskimos have over 200 words for different types of snow, and I may just have experienced snowfall as a tourist in some place. I've not. I've seen a lot of snow in different varieties, but my vocabulary still limits me to 4 or 5 words for snow. The Inuit in Alaska have over 200 words to describe the different varieties of snow. So, if I am describing my experience as a tourist in Alaska for the benefit of other people who have not lived in colder places, who want to go and live in very cold places like Alaska, then I will use the words that I know to describe snow. That will limit what I say. I may not be able to capture the essence that the Inuit, the people who are living in that region, are able to capture when they describe different varieties of snow. So, there is wet snow, there is less wet snow, there is more wet snow, there is snow that also contains very tiny hailstones, there is snow mixed with rain. So, various varieties are there, and that is what we are trying to say here, that when we do our field work, our ability to capture the information we bring back is limited by our ability to express it in the form of the written word. And when we express what we bring back in the form of the written word, that written documentation and that written representation then forms the basis for future study. And this was the period where writing became important, very, very important. Okay. Then came the double crisis. A double crisis of representation and legitimation confronts the qualitative researchers in the social sciences. This linguistic turn makes problematic 2 key assumptions of qualitative research. So, in the double crisis, we have 2 types of crisis. We have the representational crisis, where qualitative researchers can directly capture lived experience. We make an assumption that qualitative researchers have the ability to directly capture lived experience. And the legitimation crisis. The legitimation crisis involves a serious rethinking of such terms as validity, generalizability, which is something that qualitative researchers shy away from, and reliability. This crisis asks, how are qualitative studies to be evaluated in the post-structural moment? So, we need to now be able to legitimize our studies. They need to be valid, which means that the question that we are asking needs to be answered through the methods we use to answer that question. The findings need to be generalizable across the category. So, again, you'll say, if you are really into qualitative research, you will cringe when I say generalizability, because qualitative researchers feel that whatever is generalizable is outside the realm of qualitative research. Generalizability is restricted to, or can be quantified, and whatever cannot be quantified falls into the realm of qualitative research. And reliability. Will another person studying the same phenomenon at another, at the same time, or will another person be able to capture the same kind of descriptive information by studying the same phenomenon using the same methods that one researcher has been able to capture? Validity refers to the ability of the tools that are used to answer the question that is being asked, and reliability refers to the replicability of results. So that is very, very important, and this is the double crisis. One, are we assuming that qualitative researchers are really able to capture all the information they go out to capture? And two, whatever we are saying, is whatever we are saying really legitimate? Can it be verified? Can it be generalized? Is it reliable? Is it valid? Is it really pertaining to whatever we think it is pertaining to? Is it really answering the questions we have asked? Okay. So, after the crisis of representation came this double crisis, and then came the fifth moment. The present, defined and shaped by the dual crises described above. Theories are now read in narrative terms as tales of the field. So, then researchers realized that there is a fundamental difference between quantitative and qualitative research. Quantitative research focuses on generalizability, on categorization, on replicability of results to the extent possible. As far as human behavior is concerned, this is a slightly dicey situation. Then preoccupations with the representation of the other remain. We still want to be as objective as possible. In qualitative research, that may not be possible. We admit, as far as qualitative research is concerned, we accept that the researcher is influenced by the phenomena that he or she studies. But research, quantitative research says, or the basic philosophy of research as it is accepted today is that one needs to be objective, one needs to distance oneself from the phenomenon that one is studying and treat the phenomenon being studied as the other, as something alien, as something new, as something strange. Okay. The concept, new epistemologies from previously silenced groups emerge to offer solutions to this problem. So, new ways of knowing the world come out in order to study this phenomenon. The concept of the aloof researcher has been abandoned. Researchers are slowly accepting that this is one more fundamental difference between the qualitative and the quantitative researcher. The quantitative researcher is really aloof, is really outside, completely detached from the phenomenon that she or he is studying. The qualitative researcher, on the other hand, immerses himself or herself into the phenomenon, immerses himself or herself into the phenomenon that one is studying, understands that this phenomenon is likely to affect him or her, understands that there may be filters that one uses to capture the information that one needs to capture, assumes these things, acknowledges these things, notes them down, conveys them through what one writes, saying that these are the filters that may have influenced what I set out to study, and then presents a representation of what one has studied. Okay. So that the person receiving that information knows, understands the context that the information is situated in, understands the context that the information is coming from, enveloped in the context that the phenomenon took place in, enveloped in the context that the researcher was studying the phenomenon from, enveloped in the biases and filters that the researcher's representation came from. More action, activist oriented research is on the horizon, as are more social criticism and social critiques. The search for grand narratives will be replaced by more local, small scale theorists fitted to specific problems and specific situations. So, this is the time when more action and activist oriented research is coming to be accepted, where people are saying, okay, it's nice to be able to study these phenomena, let's study phenomena as they are happening and see how the information we garner during the course of this study can feed back into the phenomenon itself and facilitate the movement of this phenomenon in a desired direction for the benefit of humanity to the extent possible. Okay. And then the search for grand narratives, the search for these stories of the alien world are likely to be replaced by more local, more small scale, more applicable theories that are fitted to specific problems and specific situations. And that is the fifth moment, and that is all we have time for in this lecture. We will continue with some more information, some more insights into the field of qualitative research in the next lectures. Thank you very much for listening.